and I'll go through the best of my ability what I can remember, and what I can't remember. I just want to give you enough as to what he did to breach my rights in New Zealand, and to not uphold anything of assisting or protecting me or my rights. The Ombudsman's Office is likewise. Now, the Ombudsman's Office made statements that Jonathan Coleman should have literally taken up on them. But if you can't get a meeting, and he's not answering your emails, and he's not acknowledging your emails, and every other politician is the same in not acknowledging your emails, you're basically talking to yourself. And that is a breach of their own oath in public office. There's illegal and unlawful and criminal actions over my rights and entitlements. And these are issues also that he should have taken up with the departments involved and asked the proper questions in relation to that. You have police walking into a courtroom in the middle of a trial pointing fingers at a victim, trying to have a jury believe that I did something wrong. The judge did nothing about it. The politicians did nothing about it. But this is what happened during one of the trials that they had me up for their malicious criminal prosecutions. It's it's just vigilantism. That's all it is. It's corruption of the highest caliber. But that is the standards that these people set. They're the lowest form of scum on the planet. You have police brutality in the back of a police car. They say it's like I didn't turn up to court once. I wasn't well at all. Mr. Herpry turned up on my behalf, and the judge made a warrant for my arrest. And when I found out that he made a warrant for my arrest, I called the police and I said, "Can you come pick me up then and bring me in?" Shane Page said, "I'll do it when I want to." Next day I rang up again. "I'll do it when I want to. We're busy at the minute, Michael. You're the least of our problems." And then I think it was the next day after that, a cop car turned up, and I was coming out of my driveway, and they sort of pulled up in front of me. I reversed in the drive. We got into the back of the car, and I forgot to take my pain medication that day, and they drove me back to the house to pick up some. And while they drove me back to the house, this cop in the back of the car jumped on the back of me and pushed my head right down. I already have a neck injury. And then the other one, he was nice enough to get to go in and get my medication and that. But when he came out, I've got my head stuck down. I was just trying to get out to have a smoke actually, and no big deal or anything about that. But it was just punches and pushing my head right down, and I already have a neck injury, and it's like when I got back to the police station, I actually collapsed because of whatever he'd done to my neck, and that's what happened to my shoulder and my neck, and it hasn't been ever addressed since. ACC has not addressed it. The doctor involved was Dr. Brett Roach, and he committed suicide in 2009, in December 2009, when I was supposed to be up for the second malicious criminal prosecution. And all my medical notes and all my medical files disappeared. And since then, no one knows where all my medical notes and medical files are. And then you've got the 10 years of information that Gerard McGreevy destroyed in ACC prior to the first malicious criminal prosecution. And Jonathan Coleman should have been addressing all these issues. He hasn't addressed any of them. These are serious issues that your local MP is your first port of call. But he's not interested in addressing the corruption and criminality of his own Crown and government officials or ACC officials. So you're basically left in a criminally blackmailing, holding to ransom situation because your local MP is a complete and utter retard. It's disgusting how he's actually run this case. You have judges threatening me in a court of law in relation to my being able to speak. Now, I'm very good at being able to speak, and I'm very good at listening. But these people are all about intimidation and threats and negative, malicious actions. And it was at the end of my trial when Judge Perkins was his name, absolute piece of shit. He's the one who maliciously had me sectioned because he didn't want to video record anything while I was in custody. And he advised my lawyer straight after their verdict that if I spoke in the court, that he would have me imprisoned. So I wasn't allowed to speak. My right in a court of law is to speak. They denied me my right. David Hoskin should have taken that straight to the officials there and then. He should have taken it to the public there and then. And he did nothing. Because he was obviously involved in this somewhat trying to label, slander and defame me. And making sure that the Crown and the government and all these lowlifes in positions of power remained in control of my life and the situation. This is all part and parcel of the corruption and criminality that actually goes on in such cases as mine. The IPCA, which is the Independent Police Complaints Authority, have never investigated the complaints of police brutality or, you know, the harassment and the stalking and everything else of police. Like before I came away, I basically ended up leaving my house because they were basically doing drive-bys 30 times a day in my house. It got to the point where it was just intolerable, you know. It was bloody ridiculous that police are now becoming the Gestapo and the vigilantes on behalf of government. It's like this is all part and parcel of intimidation and bullying and abuse. But Jonathan Coleman, yet again, did nothing about that. I'm going to say, this is your local MP who will not do anything to put a stop to such abuse and such violence. And I think it's a prime example of what happened at the Winds office in relation to those people who were murdered, basically, and then trying to dump all the onus on, you know, it's all part and parcel of intimidation. And when you get to that stage, and then who do you go to? You know, your ombudsman's office is doing nothing, your local MP's doing nothing, your ministers and prime minister are doing nothing. You know, they're actually the ones looking to criminally provoke situations. You know, is it any wonder John Key and his government repealed the laws of criminal provocation? Because these are the type of actions of these lowlifes. They're all about criminal provocation, abuse, threats, intimidation, violence, and I blame the victim mentality. The only way that a victim can ever get out of a situation like that is to never lift your hand. You know, they're going to knock you down, they're going to beat the living shit out of you time and time again. But the point is, never lift your hand. Never ever lift your hand. And don't go and pick on the little people at the bottom, because that's a waste of time and a waste of space. Because the people who are actually harming you, like me, like many other victims, is those in positions of power. Because they become judge, jury, and executioners. And they change the laws to suit themselves, and nobody does anything about it. You just keep voting them back into power, and you let them make more laws to put themselves above the law, again and again and again, because there's no lawful forums for these people in positions of power to be held to account unless there is public-private criminal prosecutions. In this case, a public-private criminal prosecution would probably cost $20 to $30 million to bring every last one of these lowlifes to account, to collect all the information, to do all the investigations, and it would take a team of lawyers to do it. Now, that's the situation they've placed me in. And that's the situation they place every victim in society in every time they do something wrong. The onus is left on the victims. I don't even know why we pay taxes. Why do we pay taxes if we're having to pay for our own protection and to bring those in positions of power to account? Politicians make laws to protect society from society. And those laws are implemented by police. Nobody makes laws to protect victims from those in positions of power. And the police don't do anything to protect society from those in positions of power. Because they're being paid to be vigilantes when they want to be vigilantes. They don't do it too often, I'm sure, but they do it to enough victims. And that is the overall reality of what's going on in this case. Right. There's another issue here with ACC that Jonathan Coleman didn't take up in relation to how I was being treated. ACC started using the name David Smith, right? So I would end up with 9 or 10 David Smiths writing to me at the same time. So every time I contacted somebody or tried to contact somebody, I would get letters back under the name of David Smith. David Smith is not he's not a real name. He's a pseudonym. And when I tried to find out who was number 1 to number 10, ACC said the information wasn't readily retrievable. So in other words, I'm dealing with ghosts. This is the type of behavior of an organization like ACC. This is nothing but abuse. This is nothing but trying to cover up your own criminality. And yet Jonathan Coleman, yet again, would not take up the issue of addressing with ACC the use of David Smith or how many there were or anything else. Well, if your local parliamentarian is not doing his job, then why should he be an MP? You know, you've got the likes of Mike Heron, Crown Solicitor, who stated at one point, "You better watch your back, sunshine." About a month after that, I was approached in a park with my kids, and some private investigator, well, I think he was a private investigator, basically stated, "Drop your case against ACC and think of your children." You have Beverly Wakeham straight after offering me $150,000 and the best medical treatment money can buy, and willing to correct everything and address everything in this case, and basically saying, Jan White says she hopes you don't go and get a gun. I mean, this is the mentality of these people. You've got Gerard McGreevy, who wrote an email basically saying he's getting nothing, right? That's exactly what I got. Well, actually, I got a lot more than nothing. I got falsely imprisoned, I got state criminal kidnapped, I got abused, threatened, intimidated, harassed, criminally harassed, stalked, slandered, labelled, defamed. I got just about every line of attack you can get from those in positions of power. You know, these judges, juries, and executioners. You know. So these are other issues that Jonathan Coleman wouldn't take up with anyone. So, as far as I'm concerned, Jonathan Coleman is truly guilty, you know, of failing in his oath in public office and failing his constituent, and basically then trying to turn himself into one of these victims. He's not a victim. He's just out to look after himself and making sure that he doesn't put out any of his friends' backs up. And, you know, is that the type of person you want in Parliament? Is that the type of person you want to represent you? One who's going to sell you down the river at the first available point? One who's going to look after their own best interests and who hasn't got the balls to actually stand up and tell the truth and ask the right questions? I don't think so. I don't think any New Zealander would ever vote for this guy once they know all the facts of what he truly stands for. And he doesn't stand for honesty or truth or justice or accountability or anything else. And he's certainly not a health minister. He's more like a bloody health hazard. So anyway, that's just you know, a few issues of what Jonathan's got up to. Right, I want to take you into an avenue of an agreement that I mentioned before in relation to Beverly Wakeham and her comments after that. Now, the agreement took me about 3 months to accept, and I was willing to accept $150,000 for the best medical treatment money can buy and for addressing all the facts and correcting all the facts in this case to a factual outcome, and literally paving the way for me to improve my quality of life and get all my injuries addressed. I wasn't expecting to then have an agreement used as a criminally blackmailing, holding to ransom situation that was made null and void to facilitate taking up malicious criminal prosecutions, and then following the malicious criminal prosecutions, implementing their agreement back into place. So literally taking it out of play so I can't use it in a court of law, and then putting it back into play. And then, as I said before, McGreevy destroyed 10 years of evidence and information before these trial matters took effect. Walked out of ACC and got employed by Helen Clark in the Ministry of Justice, or by, I'm sure that the politicians had a part to play in him moving from ACC into the Ministry of Justice. which I'm sure didn't do my case any favours. But it just shows you how corrupt these people are. They just move to the one side and they get up to no good again as per usual, you know, and then they're around judges and everything else. It's like, how are you ever supposed to get treated fairly in any court of law? So this is the situation as it stands. I'm being held criminally to ransom and criminally to blackmail over an agreement that they brought into place, that I was willing to take a loss of millions of dollars in this case, just to get my health and well-being back, because money is not going to give me my health and well-being. And when these people are causing distress and trauma and torment and torture every day of the week, you want your life out of it. You don't want to be involved in this ongoing conflict, ongoing. These people move goalposts to settle things, and then they move the goalposts when it doesn't suit their purpose. It's keep moving. It's like opening the door a little, slamming it. Open the door, slam it. It's like it's a game to them. Well, this is not a game. This is my life. This is my quality of life, and this has gone on now for 17 years under the hands of these vigilantes and these state terrorists. And when you repeal the laws of criminal provocation just so you can prevent all the facts coming out in the court of law, that is literally what these people in New Zealand have done on behalf of the New Zealand people, proclaiming to be protecting people. They're not protecting anybody. They're committing crimes. That's all they know how to do. The only thing they know how to do is create conflict and more conflict and more conflict, because to resolve anything would mean having to bring those in positions of power criminally to account daily, because they're all ganging up on one victim at a time. They're all playing the same game of never answering emails, never answering questions, never giving the victim the time of day. So they literally create holding you criminally to blackmail and criminally to ransom at all times, and expecting you to pay lawyers to resolve it for you, which is criminal blackmail under Section B of the Crimes Act, because you never get that money back. You're never going to make any money, because the New Zealand system of law and being just, fair and reasonable is a bloody disgrace. No victim being attacked by any government should be 1 cent out of pocket. Not for anything. There should be lawful forums in place already to prevent these things from happening. They're not there, because the New Zealand legal system is a joke shop. The courts, as proven in my case, are kangaroo courts. They're run by clowns, because they're not run by judges. I've already walked all over the top of these people in relation to the rule of law. You know, I've put them all on the back foot, only because I stand up to them, and they don't like anybody standing up to them. The whole point of this case is they want me buried under all their bullshit. And the more they bury me, the more I have to stand up for myself. These people do not address A to Y impartially, lawfully, just, fair and reasonably. They look for point Z. They look for intimidation, provocation. They look to entrap, because the laws of entrapment are not covered by New Zealand law. And now the laws of criminal provocation are not covered by New Zealand law either. So to say that New Zealand is a democracy would be a joke show, because it's not a democracy. Is it any wonder they have the highest suicide rate of youths in the world? That just tells you the kind of government you're actually dealing with. These people don't care about anybody but themselves, right? And the New Zealand people are getting screwed every day by these people. And it all comes down to this right to sue. And it's like they gave it up 50 years ago. I never voted on this, and I'm sure that I would say half the population or 3/4 of the population today have never voted on it. But if they actually knew what was going on with this organisation, none of them would ever buy an ACC insurance policy, because there is no policy. They have a legislation. They've got reviews and appeals. The reviews and appeals are a joke show. You know, it's a grasping of straws. ACC is literally a company that doctors make a fortune, lawyers make a fortune. You know, the country makes a fortune, but the victims get screwed. I mean, you see, your life's worth less under ACC if you're dead than you're alive. Because if you're dead, your family get 5 years of your income, and at 80% for 5 years, and they pay for your coffin. You know what I mean? 29 men down a mine, and they still haven't even paid for their coffins. And I would say that ACC is probably part of the problem why they're still down there, because it'll cost ACC millions upon millions to bring them up from there. because that's part of the rehabilitation, you see. But they'll say it's not covered by law and all the rest of it. But that's the whole point. The point is you have 29 men left behind, and every excuse under the sun, and that's more than likely to save ACC millions, tens of millions, and having to recover those bodies. It's just a disgrace. But your life is worth less because ACC is a class system. If you earn a fortune, and something happens to you, you're laughing. If you're just a middle income earner or a low income earner, or you're on the dole, and they kill you, if they shoot you on your way home from work, your life is actually worth less. Your life's worth nothing. It's a class system for the rich and powerful. Because ACC compensates people as to what their income is at a certain point in time. They don't compensate you for your injuries. At the same time, if they cause you more injuries to your injuries, you don't get any compensation for it. If they do an operation on you and they cut you open and they stuff it up and they have to cut you open again to fix it, and they have to cut you open again to fix it, there might be a little something that you might get. But if they kill you in the process, you get 5 years of your income. That's how disgraceful it is. It's a bloody joke, and it's just you just had enough of it. I've just had enough of it, and I think somebody needs to do something about it. So, right, I've been asked many times what I want out of this case, and I want the best medical treatment money can buy. I want to understand my injuries, and I want to understand the effects it's having on my body, why each injury is impacting on my quality of life, and why, since the police attack in the back of a police car and the partially dislocation of my shoulder, which was definitely dislocated, and all the muscle and all the nerve damage, why I'm being held criminally to ransom by ACC, and why these injuries aren't being addressed. How all this comes under chronic pain is beyond me. But then I've got the trapped spinal cord, I've got the nerve below my thing, and I cut my hand off as well at the same time, well, all the tendons and all the nerves. That's why my hand's stuffed. But that's my bad hand. This is the one I have to use just to drive to the shop. It's so you got to reach over, because lifting it up is just too hard. But these are the things that ACC aren't addressing, and I have no rehabilitation plan in place, like I said before, and I haven't had one for 11 years. Jonathan Coleman should have been addressing these things. He's done nothing. He chose to basically support these criminals in their actions, and nobody wants to be answerable about what the legislation allows for and what the legislation doesn't allow for. I've even asked, right, what would I be entitled to if I left the country and I moved back to my own country? And I don't get any answers. They say I don't get any open, honest, effective communication. I don't get any avenues to review or appeal. I don't get any avenues of address for the use of an agreement to hold me criminally to blackmail and criminally to ransom, because it's based on using that to place the onus on me to afford public-private criminal prosecutions, to facilitate them having control of the entire situation. So I've come up with this conclusion. As part of my rehabilitation, because they've told me I need to take public-private criminal prosecutions to resolve this entire case myself, I believe that those public-private criminal prosecutions should be funded by ACC, should the government continue to deny me a Royal Commission of Inquiry. I don't think Queen's Counsels are in any way suitable for addressing this case, given the lack of depth by Ailsa Duffy previously and another Queen's Counsel before that. But they've taken this case backward to internal investigations from Queen's Counsels. They haven't taken it forward to a higher investigation. They've taken it backward, and they've taken my interactions with anybody to a case manager. So this is Scott Pickering's way of containing the situation at the behest of Crown and Government and the Ombudsman's Office. So keeping me down at the bottom and building as many walls and barriers and fences and obstacles as I can to those at the top who are responsible for this corruption and criminality and for this abuse of power. and for their actions of misfeasance in public office, and for their use of fear and violence while they're instigating it and dishing it out. Now, I've had a beating once, and when I got that beating, the statement that was made was, "You think you're the big man, you were warned to drop it." The police investigation into that was absolutely a disgrace. They told me it was a fight. I couldn't even lift my hands. How could I fight? At the end of the day, it's like, this is what these people are all about, trying to slander, label, and defame. This is all about attacking an injured person. And my body is literally, half the time, it feels like it's disabled anyway. It feels like it's paralyzed. I've got numbness all over different parts of my body, and I've got pain coming in every direction. The doctors involved is like, you go to them and all they want to do is feed you a tablet, and I hate taking tablets. I absolutely hate taking them with a passion, because some of them just do nothing for you, and other ones just basically leave you completely off the planet, So I try to take as little medication as I can, because the medication they give you, they don't oversee it. So that's just part and parcel of the problem that's going on in this case. And I believe that failure of government to call for a Royal Commission of Inquiry for a lawful outcome to this case would be an absolute criminality on their part, to not call for one after all this abuse and violence. And when detectives declare this as an act of war against you, that is enough for a government to call for a Royal Commission of Inquiry into my case. I can't go out there and collect 400,000 signatures. I can hardly even walk up the bloody street half the time, So, it's like the impossibilities. I'm on my own. There's no one helping me here in this case, other than David Heppery, who I've just, I've had my outcomes with him. It's like, but he's done his best on the most part, and he's not perfect, you know what I mean, and I shouldn't be blaming him for all the failures that's gone on in this case, because it's not his fault. He's done the best that he could, and I suppose I owe him an apology, because I lost the plot with him a few times, So this is your public apology, Dave. You're not getting another one. Anyway, I believe that if the government doesn't call for a Royal Commission of Inquiry, failing ACC's failure to fully fund, as part of my rehabilitation plan, public-private criminal prosecutions, that the government and ACC collectively are holding me criminally to blackmail, which is covered by Section B of the Crimes Act, which is aimed at costing me everything I have to bring these vigilantes and these state terrorists to justice. Because when they had me state criminal kidnapped following the secret meeting of Parliament on the 20th of June 2007, another issue that Jonathan never dealt with and has never asked the right questions, and the names of the people involved have never been brought forward to be questioned, or to collect information, or to collect evidence, telephone records. It's like there was criminal collaboration and criminal conspiring that went on in this case. Of that, there is no question. The criminality in this case is overwhelming, but police say there's no crimes to answer for. As long as police say there's no crimes to answer for, the onus has been left on the victim. So the police are obstructing and perverting the courses of justice continually. The government is obstructing and perverting the courses of justice continually. The Ombudsman's office is doing likewise. And everyone everyone's doing likewise. It's all about looking after yourself and protecting yourself. So I believe that for the last 17 years, both governments under Helen Clark and John Key, and all the people involved in this case, have held me criminally to blackmail under Section B of the Crimes Act. And I believe that they should be criminally prosecuted for that, because there's no lawful forms for addressing it, and they're placing me in an impossible situation and doing nothing for my rehabilitation or my injuries or my medical and treatment needs. I've got the police running a mile, the Ombudsman running a mile, the Prime Minister, he's just ran a mile. Bye-bye, John, fuck off. Jonathan Cole sure run a mile, Annette King sure run a mile. They all deserve to run a mile, because they're all as guilty as sin, every last one of them. I believe that, forensic psychiatrist Reese Tapsell, oh, please don't call me anymore, Michael, because I was asking him questions to correct his report or to remove his report. Then you have Gerard McGreevy, who after Reese Tapsell's report went out and got 20 or 30 different reports written without my knowledge, consent or involvement. This is part and parcel of the problem in this case. There is so much misinformation, misleading information, vigilantism on the part of Gerard McGreevy, and the medical experts and the medical specialists involved have been a disgrace, an absolute disgrace. And I think that from now on, someone needs to step up and start addressing what is actually going on in this case. I'm not going to be a prisoner. I'm not going to be a hostage. I'm not going to be a captive. I'm not going to be held in a criminally blackmailing situation. I'm not going to be controlled by serial violators and rapists of my life. I want answers to serious questions, and I want all this fully funded by ACC. I'm not interested in what the law says I'm entitled to and what I'm not entitled to. They've stepped outside the law, and now they're entitled to come up with a solution that's actually going to protect me from their vigilantism and their corruption and criminality and their abuse and threats and violence, which means I want everything video recorded at all times, not left to hearsay, not left to lies, not left to innuendos, not left to speculation. I want everything factually on the table. And I think every victim who has a conflict with ACC should be given the same privileges. And ACC has an obligation to return people to the best they can be. Well, obviously the best they can be is dead, because that saves them a fortune, and that's all they work for. Point A to point Y, if it's never addressed, we've already seen some cases end up at point Z. It should never end up at point Z. And those responsible for it ending up at point Z never get held to account. Because the person who ends up at point Z and is stupid enough to let himself end up that way is the one who's always put under scrutiny, the one who's always put under attack. You know, it's like, it shouldn't happen. So, as far as I'm concerned, yeah, I just want my life back to the best I can get it. And I want all these people responsible for driving at this path for 17 years held criminally to account and removed from all Crown and government department and employ. They don't deserve to be there. And Jonathan Coleman, you're a disgrace. You are a disgrace. Right, that's it. That's all I've got to say today.